Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today, we are sitting down to chat with Akara Campbell. Akara is a wellness practitioner and a story coach. She blends a variety of modalities to help people uncover their best selves. Akara also does dance therapy, yoga, reiki, and is a person who, when you get her talking, you start to ask, what don't you do? I met Akara. She led an ecstatic dance routine. I don't know what I meant by that, but anyhow, she was leading an ecstatic dance for a festival I hosted, and she is full of love and light in person, as full of love and light in person as she is through the computer screen. And we're thrilled to be chatting with you today. Yeah. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting, and I absolutely love the frame of reference that you guys are taking in terms of healthy rebellion. We all need a little bit of that. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And I got stuck on your intro because I had a typo in there. And
nothing wrong with that. One of my main mantras is make mistakes freely.
I love it. That's a good one to have.
My journal even says, like right on the cover, make mistakes freely.
It's the best way to, we all need that, because that's one thing that I noticed with young kids. They get stuck so early on those mistakes. So good mantra to have.
Actually, I taught yoga to kids primarily when I first started teaching yoga, and I had a 5-year-old who used to always say to me, if it's not a win, it's a lesson, so everything is a win. And
it's another good one.
So cute. I asked him where he learned that, and he said he learned it in jiu-jitsu, and I was like, that is priceless. Yeah. It's all lessons.
It's all lessons.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I did not mention in your intro is that you also have a journalism background and you're a great storyteller. So will you tell us the tale of what started you on your pirate journey?
Ooh, that's such a good one. Because a part of me feels like I came out of the womb just questioning, just having that curiosity. The first thing they say to you when you're studying journalism, first day of J school, is be curious, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. And something went off, a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my goodness. My sister used to always say I was nosy as a kid, but I actually am not a nosy person. I'm just so curious. So I would say it's part of my natural way to question things and just ask a lot of questions. And I can ask a lot of questions without having my own slant. It's just, you can be open-minded and genuinely want to learn. So I would say right from when I was a young kid, the pirate journey was upon me, or I was on the path. But really the first sort of rebellious thing that stands out to me is I graduated high school early. And at 17, I jumped on a plane to Uganda in East Africa. And this was a couple months before I started studying journalism. So I knew I wanted to study journalism, but I also was so captivated by life overseas. So I was 17, moved to Uganda for a little while, and actually booked my ticket and told my parents after the fact that I was going to Uganda. So yeah, at the heart and soul of that was really just a curiosity on different ways of living. Excuse me. And I just couldn't get over as a child the idea of there being imbalances in our financial system. So I couldn't understand why it was making an income was more accessible to some than others. So that was at the core of my curiosity when I was pretty young of why poverty exists and why as a society we even allow it to exist.
Interesting. So where did you go from there?
So from there, I ended up doing 4 years in journalism, and I actually did political science at the same time. not that I wanted to be a politician per se, but I wanted to understand the so-called system. So I figured if I could understand political systems, then I could also understand how to best make change. So 8 days after I graduated from journalism and political science, I was back on a plane to East Africa again in Malawi. They say Malawi is the warm heart of Africa, and it really does feel that way. I spent 2 months working in a radio station, and that led to a backpacking journey to Kenya, Zambia, and Tanzania, where there was a lot of near-death experiences sprinkled in there. I took a train for 2 days from Zambia to Tanzania that basically changed my life. It was like having a conversation with death the entire time. It was like a train from the 1960s, and it showed up late. So I slept a night in the train station. And when the train finally came, a whole fight broke out, and it was in the middle of the night, and people were fighting to try to get on this train. And I was like, what am I doing? And then I actually from there landed in Ghana in West Africa to work for another radio station. This was for a Canadian-based organization called Journalists for Human Rights. And I spent 6 months working for a station, then freelancing for a newspaper in Canada. And I uncovered one of my favorite stories that I've ever come across. But we were looking at the fact that they were pouring human liquid waste, so basically poop, in the ocean in the millions of liters, and yet there was treatment plants. So I came at it as like a global issue. We share our water and our air and our earth, and this is one world. And yet we get sometimes so lost in dividing the world up country by country or by silly color of skin, which just blows my mind. You know, it's like we really are one world, and to approach it that way would be so nice. So looked at why we're pouring human liquid waste in the ocean, and landed a full page feature in a newspaper in Canada, one of our largest circulated papers at, I think I was 21. Wow. So that felt pretty pirate-like. I was on the grounds taking pictures of this treatment plant and where all the wastewater was going into the ocean. And yeah, it definitely felt like a little bit of a rebel then. Yeah, definitely.
So I'm curious, so if they have treatment plants, why were they not treating the water or the sewage?
Great question. So yeah, and it still happens to this day. You know, it's and I would say a lot of it comes down to organization and responsibility. So do we have the organizational systems in place, and who's at the head of that in terms of responsibility? So yeah, we see this in our everyday lives. We all might be aware of something that is going on, like things to do with the environment, let's say, and the question becomes like, where do I start, and where do I start that's going to actually make an impact? How do I number one, how do I break down systems that aren't working, and how do I rebuild systems that are going to work? So yeah, it's sometimes it's hard enough to lead an organized life all on our own, but to do that as a global society is something that I think we're constantly iterating on as a human race.
Yeah. Interesting. And so what drew you to Africa in the first place?
It's similar to what I was saying right at the start of the interview on how I felt like I kind of came out of the womb curious and really not understanding inequality. So there was just, maybe it's like a past life and I spent some time there, or it was just like, I remember at 15 years old begging my mom to go, and she was like, "You're 15 years old." It was just something, I don't know if I can actually link it to one exact moment. There was a reporter named Stephanie Nolan out of the Globe and Mail in Canada who did a lot of AIDS research in Africa. And I read a lot of her work in high school. And so I just thought like she was revolutionary, still is to this day. But back then I definitely had her as an inspiration for sure.
And so after the 6 months working for that, or, doing the journalism there, where did you go from there?
Great question. So I suddenly found myself very torn. I saw two avenues amongst many others, but two avenues. I could go the route of working in mainstream media, where absolutely you can have some expression around what you want to report on, or some freedom around what you want to report on. But there's also stories that get handed to you and you get potentially lost in the daily grind of news reporting. And I saw how sometimes news can be slanted. Of course, news is important because information is power. But I stopped and asked myself, are we really telling those empowering stories? So the way we frame our stories shares information and educates our population. So I actually wanted to prioritize environmental awareness, and I wanted to have the freedom to write whatever story I wanted to write. So instead of going the mainstream route, I moved into the mountainous side of British Columbia and Canada, and I started my own media project called Capture Consciousness. And similar to what you guys are doing right here and now, I was looking for people who really lead conscious lives. And at the time, a lot of people were like, what is consciousness and how do you even spell that? And
good question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So my domain name was Capture Consciousness. And I did that for a handful of years, but eventually people were like, you need something that's easier to spell.
It is a very tricky word.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Just even say it out loud. I'm like, C-O-N. Yeah, it's hard to spell. But at the heart of it, I started to run my own media project, interviewing people, leading conscious lives. And I consciously chose to do that from British Columbia because I just think that there is a level of environmental consciousness that lives in British Columbia and Canada, and a deep connection to nature that is so inspiring, and it just really keeps you close to, you know, what's important in life, to live this closely connected to nature. So I did that for a handful of years after living in Africa.
I concur about BC. It's beautiful. And almost everyone I know, like we're very outdoorsy here. Like even if you live in the city, everyone's camping or getting away, mountain biking, something outside. So I love that about living in British Columbia for sure.
Definitely. And it's a slower paced place compared to other places in the world. It has like a nice, you know, the bears get sleepy around this time of year. They start moving really slow.
After they eat all the salmon, of course.
Yeah. Speaking of bears, that's one funny job that came out of living in BC for me. People, when I tell them that I landed this job, they're like, what? I was a bear interpreter.
Go on.
Continue.
My job basically was to give voice, which is funny. In journalism, they say give voice to the voiceless. That's an expression. And my job was to give voice to this grizzly bear. His name's Boo the Bear. He's still alive. He lives on Kicking Horse Mountain Resort. And actually what happened was a poacher killed his mom, and they found him up in a tree with his brother cub. And typically when a bear is found without their mom, they're euthanized because bears need roughly 3 to 3.5 years with their mom to fully develop. And so when they found Boo, and his brother unfortunately passed away, but when they found Boo the bear, they were like, let's be pirates, let's be renegades here and break the norm and not kill a bear just because it's not with its mom. Let's build the largest living enclosure for a single grizzly bear in the whole world and study how well he can raise himself. So in a way, he was kind of orphaned, but then got completely welcomed into the community of Golden, British Columbia at Kicking Horse Mountain Resort. And through a series of insane coincidences, I found myself as the interpreter to this bear, and I got to feed him moose meat and tell his story to the public and take observations of what his behavior was like each day. And yeah, it was it was phenomenal. I used to sing the Beatles to him all the time.
That reminds me of Katmai National Park in Alaska. They do Fat Bear Week. Or actually, I think it's more than weeks, but there's like this competition competition that you can go vote on the bears as they're eating salmon to vote on the fattest one, I think. But it's humanized the bears. Like some of them have names, and I love going to watch and being like, what bear is going to win this week? And watching the bears eat the salmon. So yeah, that's really cool that you got to be a voice for Boo the bear.
Boo the bear.
Yeah. So I love that. Bears are like, even here in Vancouver, I'm just outside of Vancouver, bears are such a huge part of our everyday living. Well, except for the winter when they're sleeping, or sometimes in the winter when they're supposed to be sleeping. But, just like you talk about being connected with nature, and, every time, in the fall, we wait for the salmon to return. And I love showing people like, okay, come like, I don't know, October, this stream here along this road, like where all these houses are, is going to be full of bears and wildlife photographers. Like, this is just right in your, like, I'm 20 minutes outside of Vancouver, but it's such a huge part of our lives to have that connection. And I do feel like that brings us way closer to nature. And I know when we talked to Francesca about who is the climate change or the climate pirate, we talked a lot about how making things relevant to the people that you're talking to when it comes to climate change. Like I'm from Bermuda, but people in Vancouver don't care if this, the coral reefs around Bermuda die and we're not buffeted against the storms or whatever, but they would care. Like, it's noticeable when people know, and we talk about when there's a bad salmon return that year. If they stopped returning altogether, we would definitely notice, and what that would do to even just our own local ecosystem and the things that are important to us in our way of life. Like we have the Salmon Come Home Festival every year here, right?
So fun.
So I find it's really interesting how just bringing those stories to life and not humanizing, but making them relevant to the people in the area, how that really helps bring light to the environment and to wanting to protect what we have.
Definitely. And I think so often we talk about like man versus nature, and the closer you live to nature, the more it hits you over the head that there really is no separation.
Yeah.
We are nature.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And just a super quick story about Boo the bear. His enclosure was underneath the gondola at the ski hill, and TELUS, the phone company, did a marketing ad with a panda bear one year, and they wrapped one of the gondolas in like an ad with a panda bear. And Boo one day noticed that there was a panda bear going over his enclosure, and he spent the whole day like waiting, seeing the panda bear, and then running to the top of his enclosure, just like following this panda bear ad. It was hilarious. So yeah, just his level of his level of awareness, and just a yearning for connection too, just seeing like, oh, there's another bear. Yeah, exactly. And so this I have to say, so Boo's mom was killed in early July, I think probably around July 5th, something like that. And he escaped from his enclosure 3 times, maybe more now because I haven't worked with him in a while, but he got out of his enclosure 3 times, and every single time he escaped was on the anniversary of his mom's death.
Oh,
yeah, really goes to show just how connected and how it's just, it makes you hear stuff like that, and it really does make you want to slow down and attune to what's going on in nature, because all the answers are right there. They are. Yeah. So phenomenal. If you're ever in Golden, British Columbia, go see Boo the bear.
On my list.
Now it's on my list. I think is it in Golden where they also have like a wolf sanctuary?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
It's been on my list for a while too.
Definitely. Yeah. So powerful. All the lessons and the messages that animals carry and hold, and just learning from them, and also being attuned when a certain animal is showing up for you a lot, and asking, hey, what does this mean? What's the symbol of this animal? And just how crazy it is when you find out, okay, what does the spirit animal of this animal actually mean? And then it relates to your life. It's like, wow. Yeah, it's so cool.
Kristen and her near daily elephant.
Yeah. Yes. I have animal cards, and elephant keeps coming out for me. And the elephant is the destroyer of obstacles. So, all right, elephant, my good friend.
Exactly. So you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. Everyone needs to get a pirate nickname like we're talking about, and pulling an animal card when they're on the podcast.
Absolutely.
I mean,
we could do that.
I would have to pull 4 people. Go get your own. We'll all do it.
So what kind of work are you doing nowadays?
Yeah, fabulous question. After running this media project, Capture Consciousness, what I started to realize was that the more stories I told of people living conscious lives, the more it was actually a network. I was like, wow, okay, so I have all these amazing headshots and stories, and this is so much more than a collection of stories. Like it's an entire network of people. Mm-hmm. So I definitely went a little crazy on this idea of building a global network of connecting people through conscious living. I was like, how do we do this? So
sounds like a familiar journey. We call it Pirate Crew, but yes, continue.
Exactly. And it can take different shape and form, but everywhere I go in the world, there's like some variation of, okay, there's a collection of people doing amazing things, and how can we really unite them and bring them together? So by way of following coincidences, which has always been my way, just like let go and float downstream, I was introduced to someone who was running a company in California in the United States. And in order for me to be able to build a life in California, I had to either qualify for a business visa or enroll in school. And I saw that as a perfect opportunity to get my master's in counseling psychology, while trying to focus on how to build this network of conscious people. So I got to do one of the best forms of education while also living in the coolest place to really lean in on technology and where wellness can meet consciousness. So long story short, I basically started a project that looked to connect youth with their ideal adolescent mentors. So how can we connect adolescents with kids that share an interest or a skill set? So I was coming out of a business meeting with 2 lawyers, and I had just I had asked the printer to print 2 of my business proposals, and instead 4 came out of the printer. So I'm leaving this meeting with these 2 lawyers, talking to them about this project plan. And a friend of mine who works for Google, if you believe it, called me and was like, Akara, what are you doing? I'm sitting with the CEO who is doing something super similar to your project, except he does it for adults and you're focusing on children. You guys need to meet. So I was like, where are you? 5 minutes from my house. I get to this meeting, just by chance have these 2 extra business plans in my purse and hand them to my friend and the CEO of this company that's based out of the Bay Area. And on the spot, the CEO was like, wow, you really are doing exactly what we're doing here. And I love the fact that you want to focus on children, and that right now we're focusing on adults. So he offered me a position in his company. And as a pirate type person, I had a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, the worlds are kind of colliding for me. I am being offered to be like my rebellious kind of let's break the norm type of self, but in an organization that is actually, that celebrates that is looking to collect people from all over the world and connect them. So I do right now, I have a coaching business on the side, my counseling business, but I also am fully on board with this organization that is pairing people with their ideal coaches. And it's a coaching platform they have scoured the globe. We have 800 coaches at the moment. It's a small startup that is scaling. And we're looking to really just gather people who are living with the intention of helping others and connecting them to people on the other end of the screen on a 24-hour basis. So it's a 24-hour platform. And it's so exciting to me to see us bringing together people from all over the world with that, intention of serving and helping others.
Will you remind me of your title that you have? What is it called?
Oh, yeah. Well, people were joking saying that I should be the Chief Positive Vibe Officer. Yeah. So, but I haven't officially taken on the title of Chief Positive Vibe Officer. I originally started in the company as chief of staff, and right away they were like, we're all about people being able to define themselves as they want. So basically I'm part of the engagement. My focus is on engagement. So how to basically get people excited to connect with coaches. So yeah, engagement officer, engagement manager, whatever you want to call it. Basically,
Chief positivity.
Chief positivity officer. It's basically my job is to. It's the perfect fusion of where journalism meets counseling. I have to understand what's holding people back from bettering themselves to work with a coach, and then I design different forms of content or different approaches, and just reaching people and helping them dissolve their ego. Basically, it's like I talk to people all the time that are just so afraid. It's like, I don't know who's on the other end, and I don't know like what's going to come of this call, and it's really just like letting go of that unknown and that uncertainty and trusting in the process to connect with the coach.
Very cool. What is this platform called?
It's called Task Human.
Very cool.
The roots of it are in wellness at the moment. I find a coach for everything. You can even do Reiki online, which is something I do in my practice as well, of Reiki online with clients, individual clients as well. But Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, basically anything you dream of is on the platform. But the reason why it's called Task Human is that it's using wellness as the foundation, but the hope is to eventually find a coach for everything. Right now, you can even be like, my dog won't stop barking, and and there's a pet coach on the other end. Yeah, and what I really love about this is that one thing that I really hold closely to my heart is the idea of everyone deserving to have a friend or social support. And that feeling of being alone is so scary for so many people. So it's like, how can we build systems and be clever and pirate about it? How can we build positive systems in the world so that people are able to access conscious living, but also able to access connection? So that, yeah, just no one wants to feel alone. That's one of the worst feelings. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you've taken a lot of bold actions in your life. And so would you say you have a social rebellion that I don't know, something that you stand for, a rebellion that you're going for?
Yeah. Oh, that's social rebellion. I would say the dance circles that I offer. So I offer dance as a form of therapy outside of any sort of job or title or country that I've lived in. No matter what, offering dance as therapy has been at like the core of my essence. And I would say there's probably some subtle rebellion in that like just to be a inner rebel. So really inspiring people to drop in to their own sense of self and being rebellious around questioning what voices in our heads we believe is real or not real. And in Toltec tradition, it's called being a skeptic of your own mind. And I do think that there is a level of rebelliousness that needs to come in our own inner work of like, just because I have a thought doesn't mean it's real. So like questioning those voices that tell us that we're small, or tell us that like we have to identify a certain way, or that I need to look and act a certain way to be accepted by people. Of course, that is a reality, but it's like, how can we all be rebels to break down those social norms and allow everyone to just be their full range expression? So at the heart and soul of the dance circles that I offer are just like holding space for people to really step into their full expression and say like, to hell with these norms and to hell with these labels. Like I don't even need to be I don't even need to be the name that I've been told my whole life. What's your pirate nickname? So I would say that that's probably at the core of social rebellion for me, is just creating spaces for people to question their own narratives of what they're telling themselves, but then also the social narratives that they're locked into. Like, we're all born into stories. We're born into the names we're given. We're born into the cultures that we're a part of. We're born even into the country that we're like. I'm Canadian, and that comes with a lot of stories too. It's like, people are like, did you put maple syrup in your coffee today? This Quran,
Did you go tap your maple syrup?
Do you live in an igloo? I'm like, yes.
Have you worked with a wild grizzly bear? Yes. Yeah.
You're so stereotypical. Perpetuating stereotypes of Canadians here. Eh?
Will you say the word? Yeah. Will you tell me, what is that long thing you sit on? Out and about and coach.
Hanging out the canoe every day.
So in saying that, what are some of the more uncomfortable questions that you can ask yourself if you're looking to start your social rebellion? We talked about questioning our norms, but what are some of the actual questions that we could ask ourselves?
Yes. So I would say there's two things that come to mind straight away. I would say I would start not so much in a question, but in a place of sensing or feeling. Do you have a sense in your body of something that you're resisting or blocking or trying to hush? So where is that in your body? Like, where do you hold your tension? Is it in your back? Is it in your chest? Is it in your neck? Where are you holding this tension? And then what is that tension trying to say to you? And then linking that sensation in the body then to the story. So that's when the question can come in of like, what is this? So when I do work with people on a one-on-one basis, we do a lot of somatic sensing. So like, what are you noticing as we're talking about this? And what is the message that your body's trying to tell you? So when we block things, when the mind is a trickster and it starts to discern what is good and what is bad, then we start to actually do that within our own body. So I might experience in my body, okay, this is good, but this is bad. So I'm going to hush this and push this away. And that energy gets lodged in the body. So when we experience some sort of ailment or discomfort, there's a lot of messaging in that. There's the body talks. So yeah, I would say first start in a body scan and then bring in the question of what am I resisting? What am I telling myself that is unacceptable about myself? And basically, what have I cut out of my life to say, like, I'm not going to accept this part of me. So like, what's something you're hushing, like trying to quiet down. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And does that relate? Like what comes up for you guys as you hear that? I'm curious.
For me, well, first, I was thinking it relates a lot with how I've been taught, like through the training that we've done in Lifted, but also how I did a training camp for the soul where it was a lot of getting in touch with those thoughts and the feelings that came with it. And then ultimately it led to what's your inner child like? Because it really came down to, when you get into it, how's your inner child doing with this? Like, and if you think about kids, if they're upset, if you yell at them, does it make it better? Because if you're going to yell at yourself when you're upset and say, stop crying, well, does that work with a kid? Or does it work better if you take them and you soothe them and tell them everything's going to be okay? And so that's what came to mind for me while you were saying that.
Definitely. And as you're saying that, a story comes to mind. I've worked with quite extensively with kids, and I was with a child in her home one day, and she ended up like biting her brother, and her parents right away were like, that's not okay. So she ran to her room, put on a dinosaur costume, and came back out being like, I am no longer this person, I'm this person. And it's like he physically had to go change and put a costume on, a dinosaur costume to boot, and then came back being like, I'm no longer me because I've done something wrong. So yeah, just as you're talking about, like when we wrong children, and they feel like they can't access all of themselves. They're not allowed to make mistakes, or they have to act in a certain way to be accepted. Of course, we have to show kids, like a framework of right and wrong, definitely. But how we do that is really, really important.
Yeah, the dinosaur costume reminded me as well of, I worked in childcare for 6 years, and there was one time we were making masks with the kids, and one little toddler, she had a cape and she made her mask, she put it on, and she became a whole new person and just went running up and down the hallway, like so empowered, so proud of herself. And like sometimes you need to put on those outfits to be able to step into the empowerment, and sometimes it's stepping away from, oh, I was just shamed for doing this thing that was natural. And you can, though, to choose as well, like who do you want to be? What costume are you going to put on today to step into?
Yeah. You raised such a good point. It's what costume are you going to put on, but also take off. And like what armor do we start to put on over time to shield ourselves from what we're considering more negative emotions, or judgment from others, or anything, even just building ourselves up to be big and strong. It's like, even if I'm strong in my natural body, it's like, am I holding myself in a way that is telling something that is acting like a costume? Like, are these defense mechanisms? So what do we want to shed in terms of how we're identifying and showing up in the world?
Well, that reminds me of something that I found really helpful, was just discerning the difference between your role and your identity, right? So we play so many different roles in our lives, and yet what is the difference between that role and who our true identity and our real self is? And I often talk about roles like with my clients, and sometimes we even talk about like alter ego. So, very much what you said about like putting on a costume, except this really has come up with clients and even myself around performance and performance anxiety, and putting on this alter ego, or turning into this alter ego, and this one that embodies all of the great things that you think should be in a performer, or that you would like to see in your hero, but also really dialing it back into the fact that it's still you. These are all the things, the qualities that you actually possess, not just in your alter ego. I mean, it's still you to your identity, but yet we get to play these roles. And I really love that whole idea of role versus identity and playing roles, because we all play roles. Those are the masks, those are the costumes, right? And none of those really change to the core of who we are. And that also really helps, I find, when in that role you have a quote unquote failure, right? So my coach, who Kristen knows, the great Tom Sorosi, is one of my coaches. Anyways, I love him
There's
dearly.
a little joke there.
A little joke there, but we do love him dearly. And I was getting ready for a competition, and in his own way really brought this home to me, because I was really nervous, and I was trying to, it was a provincials, and I was trying to qualify for a world masters score, and there was just a lot of pressure. Wow. And he just said to me, like, what does it matter? Will your family love you less if you don't make it? And I'm like, well, no. He's like, so what does it matter? And in his own way, like, just, really kind of getting into that, like, that doesn't touch the identity of who you are, if you don't achieve what your expectations in this matter, right? So I really love those conversations about roles and identity.
For sure. And that question can even be taken deeper of, will your family love you less? It's like, will you love yourself less? I think, like, family, of course, the acceptance of family around our role and identity is so important. But I think, like, many pirates out there have had to be like, I even have to unidentify with my family in order to fully come close to that core of my being, of who I really am, and how I want to express myself in the world. So it's it's almost cliche nowadays to be like, it ultimately comes down to self-love, but we say it for a reason. You know?
Well, yeah, you make a really good point, because part of my unlearning has been unraveling the stories from my family, unlearning and relearning. So learning who I am, because what I really truly was really wrapped up in what I learned growing up and what I was told. I had a lot of identity things there, and I've had many moves in my life, especially after getting married. And each time, like, I had at the heart of it, like, this fear of disappointing my family. I'm like, but I'm doing this for me. And so with the unlearning, being able to unravel, like, my identity was so in, how will my family feel? Will they accept me? Will they love me when I make this choice? And having to really get down in it and be like, am I able to love and accept myself? And it changed a lot for me. If you had met me only 2.5 years ago, you wouldn't know that person. You'd be like, who's that person versus this one right now? But yeah, it took a lot of really unraveling those stories and getting down to my heart.
So beautiful. Actually, both of you are touching on the point of identity not being fixed, and how, like, we get boxed in and locked into narratives of our family and of, like, our shoulds. I love the expression of, like, don't should yourself, like, quit shoulding yourself. Or in psych, they even call it masturbating, where you must yourself.
I've never heard that one.
I must do this, I must do that. And yet our identity, I think we start to feel anxiety when we fix our identity and we, like, frame it as this box. And as life is moving on, because it's constantly moving, it's like, how do I fit into this box all the time? How do I stay true to who I think I need to be and who I am? But really, like, who we are at the end of the day is like a present moment awareness and exists in the here and now. And that can take form and shape in so many different ways. Like, it's been really liberating to be able to travel the world and I identify with different cultures and different places of life, because it has broken down exactly what you're talking about, Kristen, has broken down, like, those what feel like rigid structures of, like, my personal identity and my identity in my family. And it's like, when you start to break all of that and unravel and unlearn, then you're like, wow, there's so much freedom here, because I can take form in any way, in any moment, at any time, which can be scary for people. I think, like, we naturally like consistency and we like to have, like, a level of predictability in life. And the more we kind of let go of that, it's just liberating to be like, I can identify as I wish in any moment. You know, some days I might be like, I'm totally vegetarian. And other days I go see my mom, who's Italian, and she's this miraculous cook, and she's put meat in her sauce. And I'm like, oh no, how do I identify with being vegetarian when in this moment I really want to eat my mom's delicious sauce, you know? So it's like giving ourselves the freedom to step out of labels in every moment, just to be true to what is present. Definitely.
It's really, yes, really beautiful. I'm still letting that sink in.
I've loved what both of you have shared there. I think when it comes to identity, it's so scary to be authentic and express ourselves freely. But the more we do it, the more we give permission for other people to do it too. And it's really one of those things where, like, having the pirate spirit is important to lead the way and being like, I might be judged for this. I might confuse people. I might even lose a few friends along the way. And that's totally okay. Because it's, I think for me, like, what's most important is not pushing away any of those voices, as we're talking about, and giving space for all of them to exist within my system. So I'm not blocking any energy or not shaming any side of myself. I want to be able to create space where all of that can exist. And that's why I absolutely love offering dance, because it's like, if my hope is to do that for myself, my greater hope is to amplify that and offer that for everyone who's showing up on the dance floor. It's like, this is a place where all sides of yourself are welcome.
Yeah, well, we actually, it's one of my next questions. We want to hear more about your ecstatic dance and DJing.
Awesome. So I originally started calling my dance classes dance therapy. I didn't know what else to call them. And then I was like, well, they are therapeutic. And I'm basically saying that they're a therapy offering. So that's what ended up having me study counseling. I was like, how can I make these legit? And all through my master's in counseling, I was like, I'm really just doing a whole master's to keep dancing and to become a DJ. So like many sleepless nights later, I'm like, I really still just want to just be a DJ and dance. But I really just first started dancing in my own space with headphones in, and just feeling the therapeutic aspect of music and how much music really is medicine. And the more I did that, the more I wanted to start sharing it. So I moved to Costa Rica for a little while and lived within a community of people that really did embody dance as medicine. And when I saw the way that they offered dance and just so freely allowed themselves to dance, I was like, I need to do this. So from that point forward, that was probably 2014. From that point forward, no matter where I was in the world, I was just basically putting together pop-up dance classes. I lived in India for 6 months and I taught dance 5 nights a week in a Swami's basement. Swami is like a name that you get when you're acknowledged as like spiritually aware or enlightened. Swami Ji is what most people say. G is like it's like a way of showing respect. So people are like Akara Ji, it's like a way of like showing respect. So Swami Ji, I was teaching dance out of a Swami's basement five nights of the week. So yeah, it was something that was naturally expressed out of my soul and then came with me no matter where I was in the world. So yeah, wherever I am, I end up just doing pop-up dance sessions basically, or weekly classes, whatever it might be. Yeah.
And they're really amazing. So I have a garbage truck coming my way, so I'm going to go on mute, but all
right. So where can our listeners go to find out more about you?
I have a website, akaravibe.com. I have a small little Instagram account that I started not that long ago at Akara Vibe. I think part of pirate life or renegade life meant that I did question social media for a while in my life. So I just have started to embrace the power of, I just found it totally contrary that I wanted to build this network of connecting people across the globe and believing in the power of technology. And then when it came to my own personal social media, I was like, I'm so afraid to put myself out there. And I was like, this is against everything that I stand for. So I just recently got Instagram, Akara Vibe. And yeah, I'm so open to people reaching out and connecting, and people keep asking me to consider doing online dance classes. And I would absolutely love to embrace the online side of things too, especially if it means we could just dance more frequently. And I've just recently started to get asked if I'll do specific classes on like unpacking anger. So bringing in music that can really allow like an expression of how do we rid ourselves of anger, or just like dancing for freedom or dancing for grief, or doing like specifically focused classes on different emotions. So I might embrace those asks and play with that in the months to come.
And one of these days we'll get a little dance party, you and I, for kids.
For kids. Oh my goodness, it's my favorite. I actually, at the end of most of my dance offerings, parents come up to me and ask, would you do this for children? Kids they naturally dance. There's no fear. It's like, I love the expression that dance is the song of the body. It really is. It's like in those moments where we feel like we've shed all those titles and all the labels, that's what naturally comes out. Is like, oh my gosh, I'm dancing. And I'm not even a good dance. It's not that I studied traditional dance. I danced as a kid. I was in dance classes, but these classes, it's not about what you look like. Actually, the Swami Ji in India that I used to use his basement to offer these dances, he used to always be like, you're a napkin in the wind. Just tell people to be a napkin in the wind. And I'm like, that's exactly what it is. It's not choreographed. It's completely allowing yourself to just be with every single moment in the music and just move freely. It's really letting the music move you as opposed to moving to the music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's flow state.
Yeah.
Yes, nicely said.
Yeah. I had a story that I couldn't dance because I grew up in the Midwest with around a lot of Dutch people, also in like a church. A lot of churches are like, you can't dance. Mine that I grew up in didn't say that, but I had this story. There wasn't a lot of dancing, and flow dancing really has helped for me to get past that story, to be like, it doesn't matter if I took a dance class or not. Now the garbage truck really is here. But, good. Yeah, it doesn't matter if I've taken a dance class or not. I'm able to be a dancer without being like knowing traditional dance steps. And so it is, and it's so freeing. Like, it's one of the most freeing things I've done in my life.
Definitely.
The rest of the flag.
Yeah, it's saying, let the light in and take out your trash, everybody. You're always talking, the messaging coming through. Yeah, absolutely. I think you make such a good point that sometimes our dance journey begins with questioning those stories that we have about what is not allowed or what we can or cannot do, and breaking free of those stories and really embodying that sense of freedom there's nothing like it. Like, it could be dance, it could be snowboarding, it could be surfing, like whatever. It might be painting a picture, but just those moments of let go and flow state, as you said, Karan. So yeah, it's how do we best access those, and how do we give ourselves permission to be accessing those more readily? It's something that's I'm constantly asking myself. Yeah.
And how would you recommend our listeners go about starting their own pirate life?
Wow, yay, that's so great. There's a common expression, follow your bliss. And so I think it firstly starts with getting in touch with oneself and amplifying the voice inside that is excited about something, while also turning down the dial and the volume on those voices that are telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't or couldn't. So if you can really get in touch with what lights you up, what stokes your fire, what brings you joy, then, it doesn't have to be like a radical, I'm diving in and taking the full plunge. It could just be start little by little, do something every single day that excites you. And the more you do that, the more that will amplify. And suddenly you'll just be living a life of joy and bliss. It's like, some days are easier than others, but just giving yourself permission to follow your bliss is so important.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And with that, I was like, I think I said this a couple interviews ago, I was like, I'm getting out my roller skates again, but I'm doing it today. Okay. I'm holding myself accountable. Today I'm getting them out, and I will tag both of you on Instagram to show that I actually did it. So this is my accountability to actually pull them out of the closet and get that bliss back, because I need it.
Definitely. And when you post this recording, you should definitely tag this video so people can hold you accountable. The video of you roller skating.
Yes.
Like, make sure it gets linked to this too.
So then when this comes out, in a couple of months, I will be reminded to get them out again.
Yeah, definitely. So roller skating's one. What else brings you guys bliss? What are some things that you find exploring that brings you joy?
For me, just what we talked about earlier, being out in nature. So I have 4 dogs. They're all sleeping and being very well behaved right now.
Which is surprising, because Bear growled at her before this.
Right before I told Bear, go do a relax. And he went, grrr. And I was like, okay, apparently we're not relaxing today. But he did. He listened. A good boy. Just getting out. We're close, very close to nature here. And just getting out with the dogs in the woods, and some trails with the least amount of people as I can find, and spending time out there. And we had a reschedule for interview later today, so I think that's a great day to grab some dogs and head to the trails while I have some free time.
Definitely, it's finding that solitude in nature while bringing your animal friends along. That sounds like perfection in my world.
Pretty much, yeah. I was like, how do I make money off of that? How can I make a living walking my dogs in nature?
Walk somebody else's dogs in nature.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Running retreats and getting outside.
With the dogs.
Yeah, it was funny. Last summer we were camping, and there was a group of women camping in a camp spot next to us, and they very nicely came over, and they're like, can you teach me how to make a fire? So the hubby stood up. I'm like, it's okay, babe, I got this, woman to woman. I'll teach them how to chop wood and like build a little fire. And so I did. And then he's like, why don't you make like a thing where you teach women how to camp? Wow. I was like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. This summer was not the summer. We have other family stuff going on, but it's one of those things that's still in my mind. Like, why can't I teach women how to like get out in the woods and enjoy nature and camp and build their own fire and cook their own meals and whatever they need to do, just some basic camping skills, so that they can get out there into the nature and enjoy woods. And of course I'd bring my dogs with me. So it's a thought that's in there. It's percolating.
It's so metaphorical to learn survival skills and how to build a fire, and when you relate it to your whole life, you know what I mean? So like what you would be teaching, it goes layers deeper. And it's just like the sense of empowerment that comes from those life skills. They spill over into all walks of life. So I'm all for that. And I have someone I can connect you to as well. She lives in Utah, and so
perfect.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I was trying to think, like, for bliss for me, beyond roller skating. One of the things I really enjoyed about working with kids, the main thing I really enjoyed was that you get to get into your inner child every day and find play. And like, sometimes I felt like being tall and lanky, like I was almost a danger, because like, hey, I take up a lot of space getting into this kid mode, but like you can get down and play and get in kid mode, and they love it. I didn't know much about dinosaurs before I started working with 5-year-olds, and then you needed to know you had to at least know 5 dinosaurs in order to make it in the 5-year-old world, plus some movies. Like, you got to be kept up with at least one of the most popular movies, and there were certain things I needed to get in touch with. So it's like, this is great. And I actually have missed that this last year.
Big time. And kids are so present. They're just with every moment. That I think bliss really is something that is in the present moment. It's something that it's when you let go of, when you just silence all the narratives that are running through your mind, and you're just there in the here and now. And children bring that out of people, because they're just, look at this tree, look at this stick, look at this rock. It's like, oh, it's so refreshing to be like, right, I can actually be that present.
Yeah, I actually was laughing really hard last night because one of my friends has a 6-year-old, and she and I will chat through either through text, voice message, or Instagram. Like, we'll send them messages every now and again. And I was asking her about, how can I get some of your artwork? And she's like, well, you could share some of your artwork with me, or you could tell me you love me, or you could send me a note, or we could have conversations. I'm like, I'm sold on all of those. Okay, let's keep doing this.
Oh, that's adorable. So sweet.
I was like, I do love you. You are right. I will tell you, and I'll do all the other things.
The creativity that flows out of children too. One student that I worked with loved having any form of animal ears or antlers on her head at all times, And every day she would find a new pair, we'd make a new pair, but she would often tell people, I'm a hybrid, I'm half cat today. I'm half deer today. Like, just so cute. And I don't know how many times I would like finish working with her and walk into a grocery store still with some sort of animal ears on my head, forgetting that. And I'm still a deer. Yeah.
I always loved going after work on dress up days, going to like Target or somewhere and being like, yep, I'm in like multicolored hair, brightest clothes ever, mismatched. So good. Normal.
Totally. Yeah. And questioning what is normal. This is something that comes up quite a bit in the coaching calls that I do when I hear people trying to stick to what they think is a norm. I'm like, let's just pause and really question what we're establishing as our normal in this moment. And can we have a new sense of normal, which is maybe just allowing ourselves to be whatever, like showing up in Target with costumes or whatever. It's like, antlers. Yeah, it's so true. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, we have one more on that note of following your bliss. We have one more very important question for you. The question is, do you know any pirate jokes?
Oh, let's see. Maybe at one point I did.
Would you like to hear one?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's the next. The follow-up question is, would you like to hear one?
Definitely.
Okay. So why does the pirate carry his sword?
To look awesome.
That is a good answer, but it's because swords can't walk. Duh.
My Lord.
Sometimes you've got to get the ones that are just, they make no sense.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It can't walk.
They can't walk. Like the joke, what's brown and sticky?
A stick.
A stick.
I love that one.
Classic.
That's what this reminded me of.
Yeah.
They can't walk.
In spirit of Canada and talking about nature, I'm curious if you guys know this one. What do you call a deer with no eyes?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
No.
Do you know the follow-up to it?
No, I don't.
What do you call a deer with no eyes and no legs? Still no idea.
Still no idea. So good. Oh, jokes are the best.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been really awesome having you on here, Akara. It's been great talking to you and hearing your very vast pirate story. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. See, that this was awesome to be able to drop into, and yeah, I applaud both of you for slowing down and taking time to hear stories, because there's a lot of lessons and stories that we slow down to share. So keep doing it. Keep being pirates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
It's rock and roll, guys. There are no rules. This one goes to 11.